Good afternoon, rainy, wet afternoon, January afternoon here in British Columbia. And rains a lot here. But one thing about the winter, we don't have to shovel the rain. And down east, well, alas, one has to shovel the rain. I've mentioned in a few broadcasts and discussion groups that I've been involved in recently about how I think that the younger generation, today's generation, are better than my generation, and than many previous generations. I find great hope in this younger generation. And I want to pay a little bit of tribute, and I think I'll take two cases that I know of, which represent hundreds of cases, of ways in which the younger generation have given us real hope. First of all, though, I want to pay a little tribute to I believe now the late Dr. Janelle Gotches, who was called the physician to the forgotten. She opened a medical center for street people in Washington, D.C. many years ago, which she called Christ's House. And I remember her from the time, so many years ago, when this was actually discussed in radio and a few other places. And Dr. Janelle Gotches, I commemorated her on the homepage of our website recently. Physician to the forgotten. And the more we ourselves here deal with people on the street, the more we appreciate people like Dr. Janelle Gotches and the work that they did and the great sacrifice that they made. But here in Canada today we find in a poll that 58% more likely to volunteer than the previous generation, 60% more likely to volunteer than the generation of the 70s. And what we used to call the me generation is now being called the we generation, the present generation. But I especially wanted to note Hannah Taylor. When she was 5 years old, someplace with her parents, she saw a man eating out of a dumpster. And that weighed on her for a long time, so that when she was 8 years old, on her own volition, she started a campaign to create what she called the Ladybug Foundation, to feed homeless people in Winnipeg. And really this was, as we find out, her own initiative. She came up with the idea, she presented it, her parents backed her, but it was on her energies and her dedication and her devotion and her sincere care and concern that this foundation became a reality. Today at 15 years old, she's still a shining example of all that's best in the present generation. And I wanted to acknowledge her, but through her to acknowledge hundreds, maybe thousands of other young people. We've read about other kids, 8, 9, 10 years old, who have actually started foundations to raise money to help other people. And they've done so moved by their own conscience and by their own sense of what is true morality. Robert Hampson, also as a teenager, found out that one could raise money by saving the pull tabs from pull tab tins. This is beer or soda tins. And so he started collecting these and started a whole movement, collecting thousands of them, and really to buy better class of wheelchairs for disabled people. You know, the government might give a wheelchair, but it's about the lowest quality you can get. In any case, and take care of other needs of disabled people. And this became really what his life was all about. He's 19 years old today. And his life has been devoted and dedicated to this sort of thing since his teenage years. And Hannah Taylor, I wish I could name hundreds of others, but in the persons of these two young people, I want to just express my gratitude to the present generation, and also to some of the celebrities of our day. You know, our movie stars in the past were never known for their charity or for their caring about much of anything except collecting mansions, ocelots, and Rolls Royces. But many of today's movie stars are really giving a sizable portion of their lives to hands-on charity, and work in so many fields, that many of them actually go to Africa, find out what the problems are, and work to try to help resolve them. And they put a substantial amount of of course, movie stars make a huge amount of money. A lot of today's stars are putting a large amount of that money back into helping other people. And to me, this is really a great example of what the younger generation do and can do, and what they're willing to do, and of the natural goodness of humanity. Mankind is essentially good. John Calvin was wrong. Augustine of Hippo was the sorrow of all the joy. And the younger generation have again demonstrated and proved to us that mankind is essentially good, that evil is a parasite that afflicts mankind like any parasite. Evil is an illness or a disease. It is not the natural state of mankind. Mankind was created in the image and likeness of God. And that image and likeness can never be obliterated by all the temptations or deceits of the world. It's still there, sometimes buried far within beyond human eyes, as the saying goes, but it's there. And so often it comes to the surface. And these young people really rejoice my soul and give me a great deal of hope for the future and for what can be done. And perhaps if some of them enter politics instead of self-serving pettiness that we have in so much of today's politics, we might have some politicians, more than we have today, who genuinely embrace people and care a great deal about them. We might have so many more Jack Laytons, and to replace the one that we so sorrowfully lost. And we don't need to despair at this present generation. We need to rejoice in the present generation, and we need to acknowledge that in so many ways they really were better than my generation. And I thank all of the young people who have reestablished faith in mankind and demonstrated that that faith in mankind is truly well placed. And thank you, and God bless you all.